I'm so pleased this morning to be able to welcome Parrish Bergquist to the McCourt School. Parrish's research examines public opinion about the environment, climate change, policy, responsiveness to public opinion, and something that I think many of us have spent a lot of time thinking about recently, the implications of political polarization for policy, and in Parrish's case, particularly for environmental policy in the American states. Parrish comes to McCourt after completing a postdoc at the Yale program on climate change communications. She went there after earning her PhD from MIT's Departments of Political Science and Urban Studies and Planning. She also has a master's degree in environmental policy and urban planning from the University of Michigan, my alma mater for my PhD, and a bachelor's from the University of Virginia. So Parrish brings to the McCourt School a kind of broad array of training and experience, and also a fascinating combination of academic interests. So Parrish, welcome. Can you share a little bit more about your work and also what inspired you to pursue this particular field of study?
Yeah, absolutely. So my work, broadly speaking, is about how we can effectively address climate change and environmental problems more broadly within the American political system. The catalyst for me deciding to go into this line of work, into the environmental field more generally, was I was in the Peace Corps right after undergrad, and I lived in Honduras for 2 years. And that was where I really came to understand that climate change is real and happening now and a major problem. And the thing that was really compelling to me there was how closely people in tropical countries live with their environment. Whereas in the United States, we have so many barriers that we put up in between ourselves and our environment. But I also see that American politics is a huge hurdle to getting anything done about climate change, and that we've been, we have held a lot of responsibility for this challenge, and I think we have a lot of responsibility for leading the way in addressing it. So, and then I also think that political challenges are at least as thorny as the technical ones associated with addressing this problem. So I just really wanted to understand those challenges better and hopefully help illuminate a path forward. So my dissertation was about kind of understanding how we got to where we are today as a country with partisan polarization about the environment, and what the consequences of that have been and currently are for environmental policy outcomes. And I'm still pushing that work forward, but now a lot of my work is also more forward-looking, kind of understanding where we are right now, during my postdoc with the state of public opinion and views of different policy options that have been proposed or that are being proposed to address climate change, and kind of how the mass public and also social movements are reshaping this political landscape. So that's that's my research agenda for the way forward.
Well, it is certainly a compelling research agenda. It's quite a broad research agenda. And many of our students at McCourt are deeply interested in environmental policy in particular. But of course, all of us are interested in thinking about how we navigate the increasingly partisan politics for bringing evidence-based solutions to complex problems, right? This is one example, is environmental policy. But even those of us who don't study environmental policy can, I think, relate to the challenges that you're describing when we think about our own areas of expertise. At this moment, as we are struggling in the United States and across the globe to manage the COVID-19 pandemic, it was impossible for me to read about your work and think about your work and not be drawn to thinking about, what are the implications for understanding how partisan politics may have shaped both our understanding of COVID-19 and our response to COVID-19. And since you talk about moving forward, what kind of insights you might offer about how we can think about overcoming a partisan divide and moving forward in terms of resolving some of the policy challenges in COVID-19. Do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, great. Well, I think there are a few similarities between COVID-19 and climate change. One is just the extent to which, I remember in my general exams, during my oral exam, one of my committee members asked me about, is there any other problem for which, half of the American political system just denies that the problem is real? And I've never really seen one until COVID-19. And that's not to say it's a little bit less severe with COVID-19. But there is this sort of partisan split in the way that we understand the problem. And I think for climate change, one implication of that has been to focus on solutions. You can really forge a consensus around policy solutions and framing things around values that different constituencies care a lot about. And that might be also a way forward with COVID-19. Framing solutions is something that we can all sort of get behind, regardless of the way that we really think about the problem. Another is the importance of incorporating economic and equity, specifically inequality, considerations into the way that we address both of these problems. So we've seen with proposals like the Green New Deal, and my work has looked at public support for the Green New Deal, and there's really a lot of public support for coming up with integrative solutions for these big social challenges. And I think that's true with COVID-19 as well. The public would like to see us address not just this pandemic on its own, but also sort of use it as an opportunity to incorporate economic and environmental sustainability into our future and into policy solutions.
Second point particularly resonates with me in terms of thinking about the current mobilization around racial justice and the mobilization around, the need to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think people really seeing the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on historically marginalized communities, and then seeing that the response may have to incorporate, both of those challenges together.
Exactly. And there's a similar logic behind, integrated Green New Deal style policy solutions in the environment. They are about equity and justice and racial justice, and acknowledging the fact that climate change and potentially some of the solutions that have been proposed to address it the burdens fall disproportionately on communities of color and low-income communities. So the need to address those things has really come to the fore in a way that I think is encouraging and important.
That's great. And I think will be of great interest to our students. Thinking about that, is there any piece of career advice that you've received that you would want to share with our students as they think about their careers in public policy?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I have two. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay, great. So one is a piece of advice that I've carried with me since I don't even remember who first gave me this piece of advice, but I think it's really helpful to think about as you try and figure out your path forward. What are the things that you love doing? What are the aspects of each different job that you've had, or each role that you've played that really that you like and that you enjoy and that you think you're good at, and sort of building on those things, I think is a different way, particularly in the public policy world where we're all thinking about how can I have an impact, how can I sort of make the world a better place. I think that's very, very important to think about, and it's also important to think about how you enjoy spending your time, and how you enjoy the activities that are a part of your work that you want to make sure continue to be a part of your work, and thinking about that and building on that. And the other is my grad school advisor once told me, when I was trying to figure out, what my dissertation was going to be on and what papers I was going to write, he basically told me to try to find the biggest question that you can get leverage on. And I think about that a lot because it can be really overwhelming. I mean, as is the case with probably all of us who are at the McCourt School, our topics are really thorny and really difficult, and it's easy to kind of look out at the world and get really discouraged. But the fact that my advisor told me that just sort of reminds me that's what makes the work important, and that we're sort of tackling big problems and big challenges, and leverage sometimes feels like little bits at a time. but just thinking about big problems and ways to tackle them, I think was a useful thing for me, and it can be encouraging in low moments.
Very encouraging. So we should see big problems as opportunities as opposed to, but as well as being big problems. Thank you so much, Parrish. I'm happy to welcome you to the McCourt community, and I look forward to engaging with you virtually and in person in Old North as best as we navigate the time that we have. Thanks
Great.
so much.
Really looking forward to joining you all as well.